Welcome back, guys. Today, I have a special treat for you. Shrimp and okra gumbo. I think you're going to love it. Just follow me to the kitchen and we're going to get started. All right, we're going to start with a cast iron skillet. Turn the heat up to about medium high. We're going to add, here's the ingredients. So 1 large onion, half parts celery and bell pepper, and a little bit of garlic. Start by adding 1 cup of oil. Let that get hot. Whenever you can pinch a little bit of flour and it starts to sizzle, the oil is ready. So we're going to add, this is about 1.5 cups, almost 2 cups of flour by the time you're done. Because what we're going to do is, most people say to do equal portions of oil and flour. That makes a real wet, oily roof to me. So I always add almost double the flour. You'll see in here. So it'll thicken. And then as it darkens, it's going to start to thin. So as you can tell, it's starting to get dark. This thing sped up pretty fast. I think I started in it for about 25 minutes. Obviously, I didn't want you guys to watch that long. But as you can tell, it's starting to get really pretty now. We're going to let that go a little bit longer. You'll see me start to add flour coming up. Because as you can see, it's starting to get thinner. It's starting to look a lot more liquidy than it did earlier. So we're going to add flour until it starts to thicken up again. As you can tell, it doesn't really lighten up as you add flour, so that's good. Then once it gets thick enough, or dark enough, time to add the onions. So this is 1 large onion chopped. You'll hear it sizzle. Go ahead and give that a good stir. Now you'll notice as the oil pulls the water out of those onions, that roux will really start to thicken. As you can see here, it's a beautiful brown color. Oh, it's going to make a really pretty color roux. I'll let you guys enjoy this picture for a little bit longer. Add water. I like to get all the parts off the bottom, and it helps cool the pot a little bit so it doesn't continue to get darker. So yeah, always remember this with a roux. The lighter the roux, the thicker the roux. The darker the roux, the thinner the roux. So I'm adding about 1 gallon of water. 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons of water. This is the roaster that I use to make a lot of my pork roasts and things like that. You'll see me cook larger meals in this. But it is a pretty big pot, so it does manage to make a pretty good sized gumbo. Yeah, as you can tell, when you add that roux, it really makes the color kind of really pop. Now I'm heating the water to a boil first before adding the roux to it, because otherwise it tends to clump up. So I get the water pretty close to a boil before adding the roux to it. Now it's time to add the others. The celery, I'm going to throw that in there. Scrape all that out. Now the bell pepper. I guess it's about 1/2 to 3/4 of a bell pepper. The Cajun Trinity is 1 part onion, I do 1/2 part bell pepper, 1/2 part celery, and of course garlic. I use about 2 really heaping teaspoons. It's probably closer to 2 tablespoons. Give that a good stir. The main thing about a gumbo is once you make your roux, we're going to add the seasoning first. Again, this is the new seasoning that I always talk about. I start off with 1/2 cup because I do add water later to kind of dilute some of that seasoning. But 1/2 cup of seasoning is always a good place to start for me, because I don't want to season it too much, because it's harder to take the seasoning out than it is to add. So I always season the taste at the end. Let's go ahead and give this a stir. Now it's time to work on the okra. People say, oh, okra's slimy. I don't like okra. Whatever. If you cook okra long enough, it's not slimy. So I don't know if you guys have had a chance to mess with these or not, but this is an induction cooker that I got recently. I love it. Now it only works with, cast iron or any magnetic pots. Obviously iron is magnetic, so it works. But it heats up really fast. Go ahead and add a little bit of oil to make sure it'll still stick, but it helps minimize the sticking a little bit. But go ahead and stir your oil. Basically, you're smothering this okra. But I don't smother it all the way till it's really brown. I like to still have it green. So that's a good stopping point for me. Here we're going to add more water. We're probably adding another, over a half gallon. One more. Like that. All right, I'm going to cover this. The main thing, like I was saying earlier, or trying to say earlier, the main thing with a gumbo is cooking it I love to cook it for a long time. I like to let those seasonings and the veggies and everything really meld and really, really come out really good. So go ahead and cover that. Let that cook probably for an hour and a half. But you don't have to let it cook for an hour and a half. You can add the okra before. I start mine in the morning and I let it cook almost all day because I enjoy it. It makes the house smell good. It's great. Go ahead and add your okra. I probably could have add a little bit more okra. Okra's one of those things that'll thicken up the gumbo. So you can really add as much okra as you want. All right, here's 2 pounds of shrimp peeled and deveined. We really need to season these now. Done. All right, now we're going to add these to the gumbo. I only like to add these about 30 minutes before we serve. After I lower the gumbo to low, the residual heat from the water will cook the shrimp all the way through. So we're going to go ahead and add them now. Don't want to splash myself. All right, now you can add eggs. You can add boiled eggs if you want. I didn't add boiled eggs to this pot. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It really depends. All right, once we got the shrimp added, guys, this is what I prefer about a shrimp and okra gumbo versus a chicken and sausage gumbo is there's not nearly as much oil that you have to skim whenever you cook a shrimp and okra gumbo versus a chicken and sausage gumbo. But it makes sense. Chicken, the sausage, all of that's greasy, and that fat renders from from the meats, and just it creates even more oil to skim. All right, we're just going to cook for about another 20-25 minutes, then it's ready to serve. I'm going to have a plated picture in a second. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, please subscribe. Give me a big thumbs up. I appreciate it. And let's take a look at this. Oh, look at that. And it was, believe me, just as good as it looks. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it. See you later.